allow them to, in a sense, make that transaction seamless. And so if they can put their music out, they can interact with their fan, and they can make that transaction happen directly, then they get paid first, you know? So,
Right.
and that's going to cut out a lot of middlemen, you know, like was said here today. So I think really grasping that and having that technology, those tools available to artists is what's going to happen next. It's going to be very disruptive, obviously, and it's going to, you know, be some scrambling, but this is where we are. I think that it's definitely something where little by little the industry players, the artists, the creators are becoming aware of it. And in just in a minute, if it's not Apple, it'll be another platform emerging or multiple emerging. And there'll probably be many case studies and showing artists how they can directly transact with whether it be streaming or some other form, whether it's ticketing or any other way to monetize their content. That's going to happen, and they're going to be first to be paid, and they're going to be paid quickly, and it's definitely going to be a new thing that the industry and everyone will have to adapt to.
When do you see that actually happening? How long out are we?
I think that we're probably in the window of the next 24 to 72 months where you'll have not necessarily the whole industry adapt, but you'll have some case studies and you'll have some growth with some notable talent. And, you know, and then once that happens, and there's also been some notable talent. I say that like top 40 artists that everyone knows, household names.
Do you think that could maybe put pressure on Sony to adapt?
Yeah.
Change Razor from no to something else?
As you know,
just curious.
The music industry has been notorious for being late to the party, so it's probably going to happen again. But you have some new companies that are going to emerge overnight. There's some players even here in the audience that I know are working on platforms that are very, very innovative. They're working with top-tier talent. I see somebody from Vest, which is a really cool platform. We have a platform called Royalty Coin. You can go to royaltycoin.com. It's something that we're testing with content. And, you know, it's a lot of case study that's happening. But once you have the fans and the end consumer buying into this, that's going to push the whole industry to adapt, I think.
Got you. Excellent. With this, I have a good example. This is Kanye West's song Glow. I like to call this a publisher's nightmare. Look at how many people are involved. And I didn't have the time to print out his other song called Fade. Check this out, by the way. Fade, which has an even longer credit listing. Shalita, going back to you, as you kind of gave some context to blockchain, when we have situations like this, how does smart contracts solve matters like this and what other artists are going through?
Well, in its true essence, let's start with the definition for smart contracts. Just
Go
to
ahead.
give context.
I like how we do the true, first the definition of blockchain, and then we just revert back over to you again, and now she's going to give the definition for smart contracts.
Yes, of course.
That's why she's the smart artist.
So, smart contracts, in its true essence, is supposed to cut out the middleman by being an autonomous agent that executes agreements. So think about it like a virtual lawyer contract without the middleman. That's how they're supposed to work. Now, there's a lot of platforms that actually are the middleman, and they create the smart contract for you, like, you know, out-of-the-box tools kind of way, and that's like defeats the purpose. So I just want to mention that. So in this case, the way this autonomous agreement could be set within parameters that you set as an artist or as a producer team or as a record label would be all the writers on this actual song would start with a particular percentage that's deemed by whichever parties makes those decisions. Maybe it's the manager, maybe it's the artist, maybe it's the writers, but it's deemed by the person who wants to make the decision. But after the decision's made with what splits everyone gets for the first part of the song. So we're going to start with the sample credits first. First, you start with the originals of all those songs and all the writers and all the producers of those songs first, and you put in all the percentages. And not only do you put all the percentages, but you route where those percentages go. So maybe you want to split 25 on this writer and you want to split like 35 on that and another 5, and then you have some other pieces, and then maybe you just want US to do this particular thing, and then you want like Asia to do a separate thing. Well, you would deem that in the smart contract. Then after you agree on the percentages that are going to come out of this money asset, which is the song, then from that layer, so that topology sits here, if you were to look at it on a graph, the topology after that would be the person using this particular song. So there would be a clause in that smart contract that deems if this person samples the song, if it's approved or not approved. So just assume that it's approved. Then those percentages get cut like this. So maybe the person that's using it after that doesn't get anything, but it's deemed by whoever sets that decision, and that could change based on variables. So think of it like you have changing variables that you can change at any moment based on what parameters you set. So that's topology 2. Then after topology 2, if someone actually covers that song or resamples that song in whatever percentage, then you create another contract for that to be that clause. So it gets pretty complex, but the cool part about all of this is
What's the cool part?
Everyone who you deem based on percentages actually gets paid to the lifetime of that contract. And it's done without a middleman. It's done autonomously, and it's done right when the transaction happens. So it happens at the transaction layer if you set it up that way. So it gives you the freedom to decide how things are going to flow when it comes to your virtual payments.
Nice. Great answer.
Can I add to that?
You want to? Sure, let's go ahead.
I just want to add that also
right.
one key factor that's going to be happening is the ability for artists to get paid every 24 hours. Versus the way that it's traditionally done.
Yes.
The artists will get paid, you wait for
And
3 months for your money.
yes.
And
And
find another 3 months worth.
yes.
To go through Sony and Universal and all that stuff.
Yes, but the world that you're describing is only possible when the artist takes control of their audience. And that world only exists when the artist understands the power that they have. Because the person who owns the audience is the person who wins. And the artist actually owns the audience, but they give it up to these platforms. Why do that when you can control your audience, where you can give direct content to them because you're the reason why they're there? Like, these platforms would be nothing without artists.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Good point there. Lauren, let me ask you this, and you can maybe piggyback off of what Shalia said. Blockchain technology remains largely untested. First up, most consumers don't even know what blockchain is. Ray would agree with that. Second, the value of the token varies. How can the industry build on an unstable currency?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And, touching back on all the different applications that blockchain can actually have in the industry, I don't think that currency is the primary use for blockchain, especially in the music industry. I think it's more, smart contracts, management of intellectual property rights for artists, how much their song, how many times their song has been consumed or distributed.
Is that a problem in itself? When especially, I'd say, and Aubrey, feel free to jump in hip hop, gospel music, pretty much all genres. The first thing they wanted is, how do I get paid?
Right. I think
that's that immediate gratification versus what this space actually looks like.
Yeah, again, what do you want to be paid in, right? Do you want to be paid in traditional fiat money? Are you willing to accept Bitcoin? Are you wanting to create a token or a coin of your own? What does that even mean? How do I manage that? It's the success of a coin is based on the community surrounding that coin. And the people that are willing to use it, how much value is attributed to it. So again, if we're just talking about traditional fiat payments here, that's more about a record of how much, a song has been consumed or how many albums have been sold. And so, I don't think that every artist or every label needs to make a coin for themselves. So that tracking is a little more...
If I could add to that, there's an example where a nonprofit organization, sky'sthelimit.org, they partnered up with Accenture Labs to create a system whereby there's a token that you can donate to help young entrepreneurs in underserved communities get their businesses built. But instead of the token being the actual investment, it's not the monetary investment. It's really just an open and transparent way for people to vote on who's getting the funding. So everyone in the community understands, based on this open, transparent, network that we've built, like how and why and who is receiving this funding. So there are a number of benefits that are above and beyond monetary compensation. Mm-hmm. So, we need to think about things like transparency, the opportunity cost of not being able to, afford lawyers. Some people are blocked out of a lot of businesses due to a lack of financing, investment. Some loans are too expensive. So by democratizing these financial institutions and some of the other systems in place, there's still a lot of value there. There's still a lot of opportunity created that's above and beyond just getting a royalty check.
And so that kind of
I'd like
goes
to
into
add
the.
to that.
Go ahead.
I think that the future is moving towards the eradication of money. But the step before that is the future looks like this, that when artists need money, instead of going to a bank and what have you, they're going to create their own money. And that's not only going to stay in the artist communities. I think that it's going to be a global phenomenon, that when communities need money, instead of going to their government or going to the banks or going to investors and what have you, they're going to create their own money. Because with cryptocurrencies, you can do that in 2 seconds, literally. You can go to different websites and you can create your own currency. It doesn't take a lot. And you are the bank. There's no middleman. There's no more person that you go to a bank and you give the cash to, or you give whatever assets that you have, like gold, to the person, and they evaluate it and they give you like a dollar amount for that. I think the dollar is definitely going to be it's going to be an antique.
I love it. Byron, it's been reported that as much as 20 to 50% of the music payments doesn't even make it to the rightful owner. How can blockchain fix this? Can it?
Well, the way we're implementing blockchain at the Guild, first of all, there's a lot of education that has to happen with the artists. So
this goes right back into the notion of even Aubrey and back to Shalita, the smart artists.
Yes, the smart
leveraging
artists.
Technology.
Yeah.
For the greater gain.
Absolutely.
And even in that, and listening to this discussion, there still has to be a learning curve.
Right.
From the rapper in Compton who needs that get money right now.
Yeah.
Or the one in Brooklyn who was on it right now, versus hearing what you guys are sharing, right?
Yeah,
because bills got to be paid.
Yeah.
And we're talking almost in some of these artists, let's say the little Who of the world, maybe
I like that name, by the way.
You name, huh?
Lil Who, that's
Little
catchy.
Who, that might be a new rapper live from Compton. But they want to hear it now, right? So a lot of this, they're also dealing with these artists across the board in the age of entitlement. So how does that message, how do you educate?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a big part of what we do. And so we try to come up with tools that help from the inception of the content, the asset. So for instance, the split sheet. There's artists that I meet that's been in the business 5-10 years, never fill out a split sheet. That's where it starts.
Yes.
Where you were just kind of breaking down the order of what needs to happen, starting with the sample. We do that for artists, and so it's a very antiquated system now. You fill out basically a document, you pass it around the room, and artists fill it out, and they're supposed to put their PRO, their publisher, their label, all that stuff on a piece of paper. Doesn't happen. Right. And that's why 80% or 20% or 40% of people down the road don't get paid, right? Because all this stuff gets lost. So we digitized it. So if you download the RAG app, for instance, you can fill out your split sheet right there, put all the information, and it's not uncomfortable because you're in the room, be like, yo, okay, I did the hook, you did the verse, this looked good, okay, cool. One administrator fills it out, puts the email addresses, it DocuSigns to everybody, and we keep a record of it at the Guild. Everyone gets that, and that's on digital, is digitized right there. Yeah. So what happens with the DCPs is, like, Pandora's trying to figure out, they're dealing with the label, they got to figure out the publishing information. Sometimes they don't have it all. They've got to do all that, and the label isn't incentivized to help them because that's not putting money in their pocket.
Right.
So it's like, so what we want to do is like get artists, like, write all this stuff down. You can do it on your smartphone.
Right.
Everyone can get a copy, and ultimately one day, as it relates to blockchain, all that stuff will be translated and attached to that asset, and people will get paid more frequently. They'll get paid quickly and it'll be less confusion.
Gotcha.
But you have to start with the artist. Absolutely. And that's what
another
we're-
thing I'd like to
yeah.
add on to that
Yeah.
is right now when you create a song, we have a relationship with the writers and we have a relationship to this idea concept of